went from Gems to a company called Ceridian, and stayed with Ceridian through the end of the year, which was December 31 of 2012. In January of 2013, went back to Gems. There were a lot of issues during that 6 months period. There were overpayments and underpayments to employees. There were about 1,100 total people affected, employees affected, and of that 1,100, we had 535 employees who were overpaid and about 65 employees who were underpaid. So we were asked to do, our engagement consisted of basically two things. Number one, we were asked to recalculate the wages of all employees during that 6 month period that Ceridian was managing the payroll. And reprocess it under Gems as if Gems had been doing it all along, then comparative differences. In order to do that, what we assumed that the Gems was still in place, and so we went back and manually redid the payroll. Our assumptions were that the full-time employees calculated on 1/12 of salary, as they were in Gems. Part-time employees calculated based on the hours worked. OES was based on the standard of the OES department. Sheriff Department was based on the standard of that department. Pay increases or position changes during that period were considered. Retired employee payouts of accrued leave during that period were considered, and the longevity situation was considered. And with that, we have produced a screen, which I'm going to let Dana go over this part, but by department head, it shows underpayments, overpayments, and the net, for each department. And I'm going to let Dana kind of explain what she did to get to that result.
See if we can get it all together. We won't be able to see it all, so we'll just kind of look at the top half and then I'll scroll to the bottom.
Did you bring copies? Do you have any copies made?
No, I did not make copies for anybody, but we can make them available.
I know, but I didn't know if the media had copies for.
But I can use the overhead and we can give that. And I mean, I have it on my memory stick, and the finance could make copies after we are done. Anyways, as you can see, there will be 3 columns on the summary page by the departments as I visited them. We have a column for underpayments, and that's if they were underpaid by more than $1. We have a column for plus or minus $1. We considered that was immaterial because the GEM system goes to 4 decimal places. And then we have overpayments by department, and then a net column. Visited 4-H, airport, animal control, Board of Commissioners, county attorney's office, county manager's office, finance, human resources, Board of Elections, co-op extensions, central services, day reporting facility inspections, IT, landfill, library, Office of Emergency Services, planning, public health. Registered deeds, senior citizens, sheriff's jails, social services, tax administration, and the various small departments. The various small departments were made up of things like Veterans Affairs, the Literacy Council, Soil Department, people that had like 1 or 2. I didn't separate them out individually. And as you could see on the bottom, and that is the wrong spreadsheet. The formatting did not come over, and I apologize for that because I was trying not to bring in the spreadsheet that had private information. So the actual report subtotals to $502,000 and something in total overpayments. Underpayments, $2.83 is the immaterial, and then the underpayments was $12,340. But the other spreadsheet had private information, so therefore I was trying not to bring in my formatted sheets to this meeting as earlier.
Those screens were in there. What we should need to do with
Right.
Want them to make other copies?
Right, they're copying them. And that has the 502. It did not bring in the various small departments as their underpayments, and that's where the variance from the report that's printed. But because of the privacy of the employees, and then the short time between presenting. I'm sorry, I apologize for that missing line item. So. And so the total overpayments, like I said, $502,000. Gordon, you have it right there, thank you. $502,990.68, and the other two columns came in correctly. So. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Have you finished your presentation?
Yes, she asked for a question.
Okay. Questions? Mr. Daugherty?
Want to make sure I get clarification here. Over that 6-month period of time, there were 535 employees that were overpaid,
Approximately,
and there were 65 employees underpaid.
yes, sir.
And I'm going to ask you the same question I asked earlier, and that is, has the underpaid employees been paid to
No,
date?
sir.
I know the 65 is a lesser number, but I'm more concerned about the 65 that got underpaid because of this system.
There are a couple that are significant, meaning $400 or $500. Most of them are $40, and that just comes from the difference between the Ceridian system calculating by the hours versus the standard 1/12 from.
And would you
Janice.
elaborate a little bit in regards to how you've arrived at this, in regards to your meetings with department heads and so forth?
Met with each department, like I said, scheduled over the past month and a half, 2-month period, where we went in and looked at their records. The calculation is basically, for most of the county employees, was we took their annual salary, divided it by 12, took 1 month's salary, multiplied it times 6, and compared it to what they were paid in Ceridian without longevity, because that's how they would have been paid in GEMS. In different departments like OES or the Sheriff's Department, we had to consider overtime for those type employees, or the fluctuating overtime, or the straight time that they earn above their base pay. And we would have included that in the calculation as well. We sometimes had to take into account if they retired and had some accrued leave paid out, or they started mid-month, or how that was calculated, and we had to take those. So therefore, we basically went through every single employee of the county with each department that we met with. Like I said, the various small department, Pam Holt coordinated with me to get those information because it wasn't feasible to travel to see one employee.
When you met with those department heads, was there any occasion that you learned that there were some procedures that were implemented by departments to minimize the overpayments and underpayments?
Well, public health, they had done their own calculating, and they had taken some steps to get some of their own overpayments back. For example, if they knew somebody had been overpaid, which they did their calculation based on the Ceridian system and how Ceridian would have paid. So if somebody was overpaid on Ceridian and then they either quit or retired, they took what was overpaid through their leave payout. So they got their overpayments back. Other steps that were taken to minimize some of the overpayments were both with Sheriff and OES. After the first 2 or 3 months, they took some procedures in order to ensure that that didn't happen further. There were some isolated instances where somebody might have gotten overpaid in October or December in those departments, but it was not to the magnitude of 70% in those departments overpaid in July, maybe 5% in December, if you had to dig down.
I appreciate your extensive work. I know it was took a great deal of time, but we needed to know this information. And one final comment, if I may make, Mr. Chairman, and that is I want to extend a thank you and an attaboy to the departments that realized there were some serious problems there and took the extra time and effort to minimize the loss. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Daugherty. Any other questions
Mr. Chairman.
or comments? Commissioner Mayo?
Yes, sir. Are you saying that out of what you have seen, that you've only seen 2 departments that looks like by the numbers, they took some kind of action to circumvent this really getting worse after 2 months?
No, I'd say all the departments worked hard trying to understand the system and control it, but the magnitude of the cost were the 2 main departments were OES and sheriffs, and the bulk of the errors were in the first 2 or 3 months. And when they changed their procedures, you know, if the first 2 or 3 months had continued,
Right,
you know, those departments would have been doubled,
right.
you know, had they not changed. The other departments, it was more key punch errors and they spent lots of times trying to make sure that their punches were correct so that people weren't overpaid and trying to take different approaches. They just didn't understand the software in order to, things still happened.
Okay.
But to answer your question, the Sheriff's Department, OES, and Public Health did make an extra effort, once they realized the system was not working correctly, to undo and minimize and do their own payroll
Yeah.
to minimize the errors that were occurring, mostly overpayments.
Public Health is the department that took the effort to go after the money and to get it back.
Well, yeah, okay. I'm looking at some of these other figures here. You know, like 32,000. To me, that justifies a department head really taking a look at it to make adjustments. You know, I'd like to have seen all the department heads step up to the plate, because this could have been a lot worse. I appreciate, like Commissioner Daugherty said, the ones that are proactive in taking a look at this. Again, also I appreciate the job that you have done, Nunn Brashear, and on this audit. You've really done a great job, and it's very, very informative. It looks like it's thorough and to the point. So I thank you for that.
Any other comments or questions from the commissioners? I have one, if no one else does right now, and I'll recognize you. But you said, how many were underpaid? 65? Underpaid?
65 were underpaid.
And how many are overpaid?
I think it's closer to 600 that were overpaid. I think Paul netted the 2 numbers.
And I'm looking at the totals, the largest totals: social services, 100,000, sheriff's department, 81,000, health department, 32,000, and office of emergency services, 214,000.
Yes.
By studying this, and of course, Mr. Mayo and I have gone on record, starting July the 28th of last year, trying to get an answer to this, and there's probably no one sitting up here that's happier than I am that y'all have done such a great job and finally brought to this board the true numbers. In fact, the individuals. But I will not get into that. Only that I would like to know, what is the most out of the 600 overpaid, what is the most that was overpaid to one person?
A little over $10,000.
And was that person employed by the county?
They were retired.
Sure.
Just a second, please, if you'll let me.
Okay.
Thank you. And what is the least amount of overpayment to one individual that you know of?
Overpayment?
Yes, ma'am.
In the chart, I think $2.
Okay.
Other than that, they would have went in my immaterial $1 range.
Okay. Let's back down from $10,000 and go to $5,000. Do you know how many employees received $5,000?
Off the top
Whether
of my,
they worked or didn't work?
off the top of my head, there's maybe 2 or 3.
2 or
but
3, okay.
I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
All right. Now, the last question I have is that in August and September of last year, when the questioning was strong from my position, the Sheriff's Department took an active step to go to a system that would, I called it Stop the Bleeding at that time, and it's July and August, or August and September, Was it the first 2 or 3 months that the sheriff made that adjustment and still had $81,000 in overpayments?
July and August pay is where the majority of his overpayments came from. I'm not sure when he stopped when he made his change.
Okay.
From what I can see, I can follow the pays after that. I can follow when he said an employee in October should have had this many OT and this many straight time pay hours, and I can see that in a pay register as matching to what he said they should have been paid. And then it would just be odd instances after that point.
Okay.
So, but it was the first 2 months were the bulk of his overpayments.
So I can look at the 81,000 times 3, 2 times 3, 3 times 81. I can look at that as probably over $200,000 if it probably had not been corrected.
Good possibility.
That's a
Mhm.
speculative
Because I
analogy.
separated them out as sheriffs in jail, and, you know, if you looked at him as a whole.
Okay. I don't have anything right now. I think Mr. Daugherty and then Mr. Mayo.
Well, I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure that I had some questions of the county manager at some point here, but no more questions with Dan.
Mr. Mayo? Commissioner?
So the one employee that received, or ever how many, but one the most, a $10,000 overpayment, was a retired person?
Yes,
Not
sir.
even on our payroll?
No, sir. They should have only received in July 240 hours of vacation. And that employee received the 240 hours of vacation payout, 1 week's pay, and then received full pay in August, September, and October. Social Services didn't get their first payroll register till September, and that's when they discovered it, is when Social Services discovered it. But then the retiree still received October.
I had heard there was all kinds of checks and balances in the Ceridian system that would prevent this kind of thing from happening. What happened to them?
And that's not, I'm not sure how the system operated, sorry.
No, that's a hypothetical, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Kamara, Mr. Payne?
No, I wasn't raising my hand. I was rubbing my nose.
I'm trying to be observant here and give everybody a chance. Commissioner Pate?
Thank you. You said that Social Services did not receive their payroll register till September from...
Like 9th or 10th or
So it
somewhere in
took 3
there
months
was
for
when
them
they
to
got
get
their
a payroll
first,
register?
their first payroll
Were the
register.
other departments the same way, or?
From my understanding, most of the departments didn't get their first
So
payroll
they
registers.
couldn't discover it till then. What, any idea what took so long with that, or it's just a...
The payroll register is like 1,000 pages long. There was no way to separate it by, there was no way to filter it by department at the time. I don't know if they later learned how to do it by department, and so they were manually separating it, you know,
Okay, but
by account
again,
numbers or something like that. I don't know
those
for
that got
sure.
theirs and saw that it was way out of whack, again, like someone out here said, I commend them for taking some independent action. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Before-
sorry.
Mr. Cromartie?
I did have a question I wanted to ask, but I was
And then
caught
Mr.
off
Dahl.
guard, but I wanted to ask a question like that. I just want to know, 65 underpaid, 600 overpaid, how many are in a place in there where they just got the right amount of pay?
1,150 minus 665. So roughly 500, a little less than 500,
Got the right amount?
right at the right amount.
Okay. And the reason I wasn't just,
And those are the majority. A lot of your part-timers in your departments, like landfill and Board of Elections, there were very little overpayments.
what I
in
was,
those.
and the reason I asked you that question, I love my little $2 calculator. What I was doing was looking at the total amount that is in question, and then just averaging, using all the employees, average of how much each person, not the highest and the lowest, but just how much the average person may have been overpaid or underpaid, you know, and sometimes you just have to do something like that to put the whole picture in perspective. I just want to throw that out. You know, the average of what the problems were, the average dollar of what the problems were. Means something to me, but it may not. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Daugherty, do you have a question? No, sure.
Yes, I did, I'm sorry. I was kind of taken back by the fact of your statement in reply, to, I think, to Commissioner Mayo's, and that is that a department or all departments did not get a report of the actual payroll until September.
For their July payroll.
So they did July, August, and September before they actually got a report.
No, they got September, they got July's in September.
July's
sometime.
in September.
And August sometime in September. And I guess September.
And that's just
I don't know when
appalling
they
to
got-
me that a department head would not have a report available in regards to what the actual payroll was for 2 months.
Yes, sir.
So we can't very well hold supervisors, department heads responsible if they're not getting a report. And who was to provide that report?
Payroll department?
Payroll department. HR.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Donnery. Any other questions on what you've been presented here? Commissioner Aycock.
Or, back to the payroll statement, they got July's in September. That's water over the dam. Today, how far behind are we? I mean, is our computer system, is our network now where we, I can't imagine a system, the way technology is, and I'm illiterate when it comes to computers, but I just can't imagine not being able to go in and get that information, bam, like, pretty quick.
It is provided on the day of payroll.
Daily?
The day it's ran.
That payroll, for just clarity, that payroll was shifted from HR over to the finance director. Mr. Smith, help me with that date, please.
It's effective
In May?
in 1st of May. Is it May 1st?
April to May.
April to May in that time frame.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Camardi.
am I to understand that the system now being used is the old computer system?
The old software.
The old software,
Yeah.
the old software. So this new system that was purchased and approved by the previous Board of County Commissioners is not being used anymore because it wasn't working right, or didn't have the appropriate training, or whatever the reason is, it wasn't working right, didn't do the job that needed to be done. This is my final question. It was put in place which month?
They went live in July. I don't know when they ran tests or anything like that, because that was
Okay.
before my
It
knowledge.
went live in July. And let's see, that's July, August, September. When was the first one run?
July
July.
25th, or I guess they pay around the 25th, 20.
I was just listening, and having been in big organizations, that you try to get a run out of a computer, and sometimes you're at the mercy of that technology. So it went live July, and the first report was able to be run and given to somebody by when?
First report, my understanding, at least in Social Services Department, they didn't receive it till September, when I found out about the retiree from that department. And that's how come they didn't discover it until September, that this retiree received pay.
And I just want to make this little point as far as I can see it. You going into a new system with new software and all that, I don't know that you can expect stuff to, we would love for it to work real fast, but I don't know, I honestly don't know whether you can expect that if something is not taught real well, it's new is new. And I would just want us to keep that in mind as we look around for what didn't get where when, because it just won't happen like we'd love for it to happen.
Commissioner Mayo.
We've been going through this for quite a while as commissioners, and on behalf of a county manager, I know that he has said in the past that he's pretty sure that this thing was launched 2 to 3 months, possibly more, too soon, and that can happen. But I was also told that it was hard to run a parallel system with the old system. I'm saying it can be done, and I think that there's some things that's in Ceridian that we probably would be good for our county, but it just needs to be set up right. If it takes a year to prove it out before it's put online, that's what needs to take place. I think there was from what I'm understanding, there's a lot of miscoordination in this whole project. So from that standpoint, Mr. Cromartie, this system, and there are other companies in our area that are using the Ceridian system for their payroll, and of course it's different from the county, of course, the software. But the bottom line is that there's still some value somewhere, not now, but down the line, with the Ceridian system. It just needs to be done in the proper way, timely way, where the transition is. I like Mr. Andy Anderson's, I like his comment that says it needs to be seamless. It needs to be a seamless transition. So somewhere down the road, we might can use Ceridian. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments?
Yes.
Mr. Commissioner Bell?
You know, I'm retired from the Air Force and retired from the state of North Carolina. And we've been with the state system over 10 years, and we still have problems. When I was in the Air Force, and now I'm retired, I didn't get paid for 2 straight months, about 6 months ago. And they've been doing it for what, 100 years? So you're going to have problems. But the good thing about this is that we got to the bottom of it and we can move on. You know, to talk about Ceridian now, you know, every time we meet about what kind of problem Ceridian was, we done bypassed Ceridian. And we got to make a decision now as to how we're going to move forward. You know, it just don't make sense to keep talking about Ceridian.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Bell. Any other questions for Nunn and Bashir?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
This is we report. Yes, sir. Commissioner Mayo.
But at the same time, Commissioner Bell, it depends on whether it costs the taxpayers of Wayne County or not. In this particular case, it's okay on the underpayments, we can pay that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you got $500 and almost $3,000 that's overpaid, that affects the citizens of Wayne County directly. That's why we need to address it. That's why we need to keep talking about what's happened here with the Ceridian system. So that's why we need to put it in the forefront. If it didn't cost the taxpayers of Wayne County $500 and $3,000, I would be sitting back and say, hey, everything's fine. But that's not the case. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I did
Thank you,
have.
Commissioner Mayo. Commissioner Daughtery?
It even goes beyond that. Do you have any figures in regards to the additional cost that the county incurred as a result of not making payments to the retirement system, and we in turn had to pay the penalties in regards to that? Or did your report not include any of that?
It didn't include any of that. There were some in our audit report that were 3 months worth, but then there were 3 months that weren't included in our audit report that the county had some cost since those.
Are you aware of what those figures might be? Or would you prefer not to
It would be a
answer?
guess, and I'd
Okay.
prefer not to say out
Okay.
loud.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Commissioner Daughtery, that information was given by Nunn and Bashir back in April, and I have misplaced their report. I thought I had it in front of me, but you have issued a report of the cost thus far. That was in April. That sort of gave this board the push to find out more. And I'm sorry, I do not have that information before me.
I don't.
But it was presented to us back in April, and there was several $1,000s in fees and penalties. And the company, Nunn and Bashir, did identify those costs in that letter, but I apologize, I do not have it in front of me. But I'm sure if you would like a copy of that, we could get that copy pretty quickly. In fact, here it is here. It is dated, Independent Accounting Report to apply agreeing upon procedures to the Board of Commissioners. It does have a date on it. Dan, would you mind, please, verifying that? I'm sorry, it does have a date.
These are the additional retirement cost. I didn't know if there's the cost for paying late were some costs that aren't in this, and then there's these retiree costs.
So there are additional costs other than that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this report, this one was $58,170 in additional retirement costs that the county paid, plus some penalties and interest that would be charged at a later date once these were submitted and paid. But then there was the one that was in our audit report that were the 3 months, and that was because the retirement file went late
Correct.
to the state. And as of the date of our audit back in December, we only knew of the 3, July, August, and September. But you were charged late fees for October, November, December, and January for the retirement file going late to the state.
We did receive those, some of them Ceridian paid those back, just the penalties assessed by the state retirement system. Ceridian did pay us back yesterday.
But
Not the amount we paid, but the penalties.
Just the penalties for late.
So 24,000.
$24,000.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any others? Questions?
Just one follow-up on
Commissioner Payton.
that. We are up to date on all those contributions to the retirement system now.
Yes.
When did we finally get caught up? What was the date?
But,
You recall?
we caught it up when the numbers you was hired to go through the audit on.
She did that shortly after you guys
So it was
approved
in
that
April?
report.
When we're in April somewhere? Okay. Thank you.
We implemented the procedures to get it made it up.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you. That is our last report. We do have lunch before we get into, but I would, yes, Mr. Daughtery,
I did have some follow-up questions for the county manager.
for the county manager. Yes,
If at
sir.
all possible.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Smith, I've got some serious problems here. This is a major problem. And I wondered if you could reply to me regarding remembering a conversation or conversations or questions that were relayed directly to you regarding the seriousness of this, in which on numerous occasions you replied that there were only a handful. I remember specifically you stating there were only a handful of overpayments and that they were just blips in the system. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Well, I don't call 600 overpayments and 65 underpayments as being a blip in the system. Do you recall me on numerous occasions asking you what was the total of the overpayments?
Yes.
And do you recall publicly and privately replying that it was less than $200,000?
Based on the information I had at the time, yes.
I was reviewing this report, and it clearly states here that the county is responsible for maintaining all financial records and ensuring control procedures are in place and followed. and the sufficiency of these procedures is solely the responsibility of the Board of Commissioners and the management. And to have a $500,000 and more does not seem to me as if we have proper controls and procedures in place. Mr. Chairman, I move that we go into closed session.
Motion's on the floor to go into closed session pertaining to what, Commissioner Daugherty?
To consult with our attorney.
Counsel?
Right. That is reason to require that would allow a closed session.
All right, motion's on the floor to go into closed session to discuss issues with council, county business with
That's
council.
required.
Please. Just making it proper. I don't,
I mean,
thank you.
to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the board.
Thank you, counsel. Any discussion? Motion's on the floor to go into closed session. All those in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous, everyone. Go into closed session. I'd like to bring the Board of Commissioners back into order, please. Is there any other discussions from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Daugherty.
Upon advice of attorney, I make the motion that we go into closed session to consult with the attorney and to discuss the performance of an employee.
Motion's on the floor to go into closed session. Any discussion? Declare this back in open session. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Mr. Chairman.
All those opposed?
Commissioner
Daugherty. It's unanimous.
I find myself in an awkward position, situations that we sometimes find ourselves in that we don't look forward to. But I feel like I must address that issue and that task, step up to the plate, and do what I feel like is in the best interest of not only my district, but the entire county of Wayne. I have lost all trust and confidence in the county manager, Lee Smith. Mr. Smith has provided continuously inaccurate, misleading, and false information to the citizens of Wayne County. The Board of Commissioners, this board and prior boards. He states things that are untrue and are inaccurate. I and this board must make decisions based upon the information provided to us for us to have good, sound decisions for the citizens of Wayne County. We must have full faith and trust in the county manager and his responses. And they need to be open, they need to be truthful, and they need to be complete. Nothing held back. And I find that I can no longer make those decisions based upon the information provided by Mr. Smith. I've given Mr. Smith every opportunity, ample time to prove his leadership and his knowledge, but yet I have lost that faith. As a commissioner, I understand my duties and my responsibilities, which include to providing simple truth, identifying the cause of problems, and obtaining the best results through the best plan of action. This last episode is one of many where the county taxpayer has suffered a tremendous financial loss, and someone needs to be held accountable. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I move that I move that we terminate the employment contract of Mr. Lee Smith with Wayne County, effective immediately. I made that in form of a motion.
Motion is on the floor by Commissioner Daughtery that we terminate the contract with County Manager Lee Smith effective immediately. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bell.
I would just like to say this. I've been working with Lee Smith for 12 years, and I've worked with other county managers, and I know where the county was when he came to this county, and I know where it is now. Contrary to what some may say, to talk about the county have been overspending and all that kind of stuff, we're one of the most successful counties there is in the eastern part of North Carolina. When he came here, we had an inflated budget that looked like we had money, but we didn't hardly have enough to last us 3 months if we had a disaster. Under the leadership of County Manager Lee Smith, we built this county to where we could do things, where we have a AAA credit rating. And if we had to go out and borrow $50 million today, we could do it. Contrary to what my seatmate here have just said about not being able to believe in the county manager, the last time I checked, the county manager carried out the dictates of the County Board of Commissioners. Everything that I have known Mr. Smith to do since I've been on this board, it was because the county commissioners, the sitting county commissioners, which I have a great deal of respect for, no disrespect for any of you guys up here, because I think you guys are A-OK as far as I'm concerned. But what I'm trying to say is that Lee Smith didn't make decisions on his own, just came up and made decisions. He carried out the dictates of the previous boards. I don't know where Commissioner Doyle is getting this information from, but I disagree with him 100%. That's all I have to say.
Commissioner Mayo.
The only problem I have with it is the timing issue, because we have no solution. I understand that we have no applications. Nobody's even inquired as to who would be the next county manager for Wayne County. That's the only problem I have with this motion, is the fact that we have not prepared for this. And so I just wanted to say I have a problem with not being prepared, and we're not prepared. We're not prepared as a board to handle a new county manager at this point. We could be in 2 or 3 months if we apply ourselves, but as of right now, we are not. We don't have a solution to the problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Mayo.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cromartie.
Just not to play on words, but we might not be prepared to move to a new manager, because that's not what we've been concerning ourselves with over the last several months. We've been concerning ourselves with trying to come up with a budget that would be sufficient for the county to work on for this coming year. A lot of times when you're prepared to go to a new CEO or director or manager, you've been seeing things as a group that would cause you not to be able to work with that person or lose faith in their abilities. Now, I've worked under different organizations, and most recently with the school system, and I served as the assistant superintendent for personnel. And people who work in the school system have a right to have heard, and oftentimes in writing, technically in writing, if there were deficiencies in their performance, and have a chance to answer those and to defend themselves in an appropriate manner, because that's just pure old employment procedure and protocol. Now, anyone can take a list and write something down, but I argue that you need to have some evidences to back that up before you even reach this arena that we're talking about right now. Simple protocol calls for employees to have a right to get there. Just not to play on Mr. Mayo's words, but if we haven't been considering this, then, you know, that tells you right there that the job that has been done has been adequate, if not above adequate, to the point where there was not this broad discussion of any need to even think about making a change. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cromartie. Any other discussion from other commissioners? As your chairman, I couldn't possibly let something like this happen on my watch without at least letting the people of Wayne County know where I stand as your chairman. Because being in this seat is one that is pretty tough at times, and this is probably today the toughest one, the toughest moment. I have served on this board since '08, and I watched the previous board with a lot of uncertainty at times give the reins to a thoroughbred, as we have, and you have, I've gone public to explain the energy and synergy of and direction of our county manager, Mr. Lee Smith. But a good thoroughbred to win a race, especially in the Kentucky Derby or the Preakness or the Belmont and win the Triple States, takes a great jockey. And that jockey has been in the commissioners in the past. And since '08, I've been a part of those commissioners, and I have watched, as there were many in the past, and also watching and reading the minutes of even the commissioners previous to '08, even back to when Mr. Smith came, that it was unfortunate at times when the board could have been the right jockey, they allowed Mr. Smith to run out of speed, run out of steam, and not finish the course. I guess it's just incompetence on the part of commissioners and not the county manager. And there came a time when the commissioners gave Mr. Smith the opportunity to stay on for 5 years. And I went public at that time as a commissioner that I was not in favor of that, because that decision was started 14 months prior to his contract running out without proper, I think, performance, annual performance pieces that were, I think, due to me as a commissioner having to make that kind of decision. I wanted to see his performance record. And I was beat down by the majority of that commission board that it was okay, that we needed that 5-year extension. And I voted against that with the stipulation that we would give him 1 year after November election in 2012, which we have just gone through. That I knew that he, no matter what the makeup of the board was in November, that he as a commissioner, as he as a county manager having to answer to the commissioners and what I had witnessed since '08, that at least I knew that he had what he had in him to finish the race and finish the race strong. And I knew when I went public that if we had a change in November, that I didn't have a problem with a year. Because I knew that coming in, we'd have 6 months on the budget, and if it was a new board, it would take Mr. Smith to get us through that process. And he has done that. He has gotten us through that process. But I went on record to say I agree that he deserves a year to see what he can do with this board and be sensitive, because he is nonpartisan and he understands the system. And I think he understands Wayne County more than we give him credit for. And I know there's a checks and balances. My goodness, I've been doing that for 34 years. But there is a lack of sensitivity, I think, sometimes from Mr. Smith that he has shown me, but later to find out that his mind was so full of what was really going on in other parts of the county that I understand why he did not embrace me at that moment. But I can honestly tell you that every time I've asked him to do something for me, he does it. Now, am I selfish to maybe understand that he should come and embrace me and grab me by the arm and say, come on, Mr. Chairman, let me show you how it really needs to be done, because you're not exactly in step. Do I wish that? Is that selfish thinking? I think somewhat. I would like that sometime. But when you see the big picture and know what the responsibilities really are, then there is accountability. But I want to finish this up as your chairman, is that I'm not ready to make a change. That's all.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Pate.
Today's meeting, I learned several things about this overpayments in the payroll system. That apparently neither he nor his department managers were aware of this huge overpayment. Of course, I think they got some indication early on, but how badly it was, I don't think they knew. I've managed people, I've had supervisors, and sometimes they let you down. And having said that, when you learn that, then hopefully the ones that let you down so badly, you go and discipline them up to termination, if necessary. $500,000 is a lot of money. Will it cost us more money to get it back than it will to retrieve it? I don't know the answer to that question yet. I think some of the things that the Commissioner had already said are founded. But I think every man, like you said over here, deserves the opportunity to respond. So I'd like to see that happen. I'm unaware that we even have an evaluation system for the county manager. If we do, I don't know about it. I think there should be one, because there are certain protocols you have in employment law that you need to follow through. But again, I'd like to see some responses in those areas that we can determine they are founded. We need to see changes, and that's all I'm going to say at this time.
Mr. Aycock and then Mr. Mayo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, we've had some busy days in the last couple of months. Worked hard on the budget. Could not have probably did it as quick as we did if it hadn't been for the county manager. I think I'll be the first to admit, and he probably will too. Me and him had some different opinions over the years. But haven't we all had that same difference of opinions in our own marriages? I just think we've got too much ahead of us right now in the future of this county. Several issues that need to be addressed. I know the budget was the largest, but we have some other issues. And I'm going to take the stand as the chairman. I'm not in a position to change right now.
Commissioner Mayo.
Wanted to follow up on my comments earlier. You know, in spite of what some news media say sometimes, this is where I think 35 years of experience in owning a business in the private sector is really pertinent to what we're talking about. In our business, without planning ahead, and that's what I alluded to a few minutes ago, without planning ahead, without having someone that you can go to, you really need to know the answer to the question before you ask it. But here's the question, and this is a question that I have to ask myself as a private business owner. If I have a disagreement with one of my supervisors, even though I don't like what he does all the time, at the end of the day, if he is helping us get the product out the back door and it's of great quality, it's on time, then I need to ask myself the question, if I get rid of that person, if I ask that person or fire them, what am I going to get to replace them? Am I going to be worse off than what I got? And until you can answer that question, you have to do your homework. You've got to have applications. You've got to have people that you have already talked to. You need to know what you're going to get to replace what you're getting ready to get rid of. That's the only problem I have with this. It's a timing issue. I'm not saying if it's right or wrong. I'm just saying right now it's a timing issue. Now, the county manager, Mr. Lee Smith, he will tell you that he and I get along fine. We've had our disagreements, but I'm in agreement with Chairman King. I have sat on in agenda meetings, pre-agenda meetings. I sat in a lot of meetings, and yes, we have our differences, but so do all 7 of us on this board. We have a difference, but we're still working together. So I say we need to do more homework and preparedness before we make this decision, and that's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Daugherty.
I don't think that the citizens of Wayne County elected us to come up here and become friends. That's a side benefit. I think we all are friends. I think what they sent us here is to represent what is in the best interest of Wayne County and the operation. And in all due respect, many boards change managers, whether or not we're speaking of a city manager or a county manager, and this is done throughout the country on a continuing basis. And you can't advertise for a new manager until you dismiss the current manager. I mean, you can't open up a job opening when the job's not open. And I realize that we are facing, as many other counties would be faced and have faced in the past, an opportunity to find new leadership, a new captain at the wheel. My question that I would ask that each one of you ask yourself, and that is, has this county manager been prudent in regards to managing the county in such a way to protect the best interest of the taxpayers? That's really the question. The question is, who is controlling the ship? If you've got a $500,000 problem and you didn't acknowledge it and didn't know about it, and your departments are not even getting reports until 2 months later, then there's a serious management problem there in policies and procedures. And those policies and procedures are in fact established by the county manager. Now, you know, the old saying is, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. You are not going to get different results unless there's a change. it's not only a matter of whether you're friends, it's what's in the best interest as your duty as a commissioner. I understand it's uncharted territories, and I understand there's an unknown there. But with all that said, in my opinion, if not now, when? If it were $5 million, would that be enough to say, hey, we need to go ahead and make a change? Is it 1 million? How much of a problem would it convince you would be sufficient enough to simply do as I have moved, and that is that we cancel that management contract with this particular manager and seek through other means of finding new leadership and a new manager? We have a lot of resources available to us through the North Carolina County Commissioners Association, through the Eastern Carolina Regional ECC. Just a number of organizations are available to us. We have an opportunity to have a temporary manager that we would interview, an interim manager, until we find a new manager. But these things can be taken care of. My point is that I feel like that I am doing what I need to do to discharge my duties as a county manager and looking after the county. Thank you,
Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Daugherty. Commissioner Bell, I respect your call for the vote, but then in the seriousness of the matter, I want to give every opportunity to each
Okay.
commissioner
Okay.
to
no problem.
speak. Are there any other comments? Questions? Mr. Smith? Does each one understand the motion? I'll ask the clerk to reread it, please.
To terminate the employment contract with County Manager Lee Smith, effective immediately, Lane County.
Each one of you understand the motion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. All those opposed? What's the count, clerk? Ms. Clerk, what's the count?
6-1.
Mr. Daugherty? Not finished. Okay. This, Board of Commissioners comments. Mr. Kumari?
None at this time, sir.
Commissioner Bell?
No comment.
Commissioner Pate?
Thank you.
Commissioner Aycock?
Oh, I'm gonna say something.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Commissioner Pate.
Something that is still moving forward and is our Ag Center that we've got in our capital improvement plan. There has been a video that has been completed, and we did some updates on that. We're still awaiting the final report before we go public with what we want to do. And I'm hoping by next meeting that possibly we'll be able to do that, because I think we're supposed to get that report sometime in July. That's all right.
Thank you, Commissioner Pate. Commissioner Aycock?
No comments.
Commissioner Daugherty?
I respect this board's decision. I hope you at least understand my concerns, and those concerns go forward. I would only hope that our county manager recognizes that it is his responsibility to maintain a solid course, that policies and procedures are in place to ensure that the taxpayers' dollars are in fact really managed well. I would hope he also would be forthright and being, when questions are asked, publicly or privately, that he answers those completely to the best of his ability and knowledge as to the proper answer. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Mayo.
No comment.
I have one quick one. There's been a lot that went on today, and it's 1:30, and we're going hopefully to adjourn very, very shortly. But there's one thing I need to mention to you as your chairman, is that we have 122,000 people out there in Wayne County that are looking to us to set ordinances and policies and to move this county forward. There are indifferences, and there are certainly, we draw the lines, and we're in a partisan, we're not like a municipality. There are parties involved, and when we look at that as a commission, we look at the ethics and morals and the structure and the responsibilities and the accountability. We look at all of those things as a board complete with 7 people that are trying to do their best for their districts and for the county. That's how this county is laid out. And we have a county manager today that has certainly heard a lot, and I think that with the impact that he has not only received today, but the people of Wayne County will see and witness as they see this on TV, and of course read about it in the newspaper and have heard it on radio, hopefully. With the impact all of this is today, it's not a bad thing, because this is the way that America was built, is that we could get together and we can vet this kind of conversation without fear of someone coming through the door and arresting us or shooting us. We as a county must stand united. We have children that need to be educated. We have 1 in 10 people in this county can't read, adults. We have 1 in 4 poverty. We have performance rates in our school system, within our schools, some schools in this county, that are just unacceptable. And we've got a job level that needs to be expanded into industry that can employ people, and our rate go down, our employment rate go down. But it's not all about us today. It's about the people. It's not about politics today. It's about people of Wayne County. And as your chairman, your leader, and some might say, well, I'm the CEO. Well, I'm just going to quote something that was printed in a local paper. But the point is, the seat I'm sitting in is the chairman that was elected to this position by 6 or 7 commissioners that the people in this county have put faith in for 4 years. And I applaud a county commissioner to stand tall and to hold the county manager accountable, because he has the freedom to do so. I applaud that. Because the county manager always serves at the direction of the board. And we are elected to do a job for 4 years. And I was one time not happy about every 4 years, but I am now, because we all know the journey that we're on for 4 years. There's not somebody that's going to file next February and be elected in following November. All of a sudden, we're confused again. But I don't think today has been a confusion for this county. I think it's been a wake-up call. I think today has been a true wake-up call for the staff and for the people of this county and for the commissioners, because we spilled our hearts today, one in particular, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, we must find our indifferences, and we must unify our efforts for someone other than ourselves. Those people are destitute in this county. The city has its issues. All the municipalities have their issues. The county has its issues. We've got a county manager that today understands more so the hearts of this board than he did before he came to work this morning. Have you not, Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir.
Now, with that said, we must leave this place today, not depending on what somebody might say, but what we actually do. And that's where I want to finish, is that we, as county commissioners, understand our responsibilities, and it was put forward today very well by Commissioner Daugherty, our responsibilities. So as we leave today, let's understand that at the end of the day, we still have to live together in this great county of Wayne that is a star in the East. And I want to finish with that. And with that said, I'd like to, that's my end, and I'd like to ask someone to, let's adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, let me say just one final word before you say your final word, because I don't want to be the
No,
last.
I've finished, Mr. Bell. Commissioner Bell, I'm sorry.
Just so everybody would know, the county manager doesn't make policies. He doesn't set policies. That's the Board of Commissioners that set policies, and he carry them out. So I just want anybody to think that the county manager go around making policies, but he doesn't do that. That's not his job.
That's our comments.
Now, motion to adjourn.
That's our comments. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Bell, thank you. Any other discussions, issues to bring before the board? Motion that we adjourn. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Thank you.